please, first question, if you please can raise your hands. Yes, please.
José Antonio González, de la agencia Colpisa. En su intervención el señor Kaku ha hablado de que seríamos tontos si pensáramos que el coche eléctrico iba a salvar el planeta. Pues, ¿cuál es la solución? Él hablaba de usar el agua marina y el sol como energía alternativa. Pues, ¿cuál es la solución?
Okay. Dr. Kaku, you just said that we will be fooled if we thought that electric cars are going to save us. In your opinion, what are then the solutions to the emergency we are in? Is it, you spoke about marine water, fusion energy. Could you please develop? Thank you.
Yeah, as I mentioned, the electric car does not solve the climate problem at all. People are fooled to thinking that the electric car is our savior. Why is that? Because where does the electricity come from? Electricity comes from your wall socket. But where does your wall socket get electricity from? Mainly coal-fired plants, not all. So electric cars burn energy from coal. The exhaust, of course, is pure, but the energy comes from coal plants. So that's not the solution. I think the solution is much more complex. There are many layers of solution. I think that transportation moves into 3 or 4 different stages. In stage 1, you have like the railroad, which transports steel, weapons, guns for the government. That's stage 1, where it's heavy industry, the railroads, rocket ships. Stage 2 is when rich people begin to see that they can create luxury liners. That's space travel today. Space travel is now in stage 2, where wealthy people can go into outer space. Stage 3 is when prices drop to the point where mom and dad and your family can get on an airplane. Stage 4 is reverse mobility, when the internet becomes so realistic that you spend more time shopping online, learning online, doing things online than actually getting in a car and polluting the environment. I think it's a combination of several factors, okay? One, as you mentioned, driverless cars will become artificially intelligent. They will plot the fastest route, the most efficient route, the most fuel-efficient route every time you vacation. It'll be intelligent. You'll talk to it. You'll argue with it. You'll have arguments with your car about which way to go, which way is the less polluting. That's one aspect. Another aspect, as we mentioned, is, well, we're going to burrow into rock. The cost of burrowing into rock has dropped to the point where we can make tunnels into the rock of the earth to commute right to Main Street, right to Wall Street in a car. The Boring Company has shown this. Las Vegas is going to have one installed pretty soon. I'm going to be speaking in Las Vegas next week. So that's the question of new routes by burrowing into solid rock, okay? Maglev trains, magnetic levitating trains, are also waiting to be deployed. China has pioneered this technology, except we don't use it nearly enough, okay? So I think on many routes, not just that, but many routes will be able to address the problem. Also energy. If energy doesn't come from coal, where will it come from? I say fusion. In 2 to 3 years, the ITER fusion reactor is going to be turned on in southern France. By mid-century, we hope to have self-sustaining fusion power, which means taking burden off the electric car, because the energy will come from fusion power, not fission power, not coal. So it's a combination of several factors, I think.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor. Please, next question.
I think, yeah. Now it's working. I'm Marta Isern from Negocios Televisión. Thank you, Doctor, for taking my question. Considering all these stages that you mentioned, how should governments and institutions act? Which role should they play?
Well, I think for big projects that only governments can push, they should push those projects. For example, the fusion plant. No commercial entity is big enough to push commercial fusion power. So I think that's where big governments can play a role. But once the proof is done, they should get out of the way. Look at the space program. The space program was pioneered by NASA and the Russian Space Agency. Once it's off the ground, what do you do with it? You give it away. And now SpaceX and now private companies are jumping into the bandwagon. They are paying for the space program. So initially, I think governments have to foot the bill. But once the bill is paid and the technology is proven, then governments have to get out of the way. Because governments want to control, even when they're not necessary, they're not needed. So the space program is a perfect example of that.
Thank you, Professor. Next question. You can ask in Spanish if you feel more comfortable. Thank you.
Greetings. I'm Fernando Valenchon from Cinco Días. And well, in your exposition, we saw wonderful innovations, but couldn't them be dangerous, in your opinion?
What could there be? What?
Dangerous.
Dangerous.
What could be dangerous?
For example, the next stage of not commuting, for example, or the brain internet. The library of souls, for example.
Well, any technology can be used for evil purposes. It depends on democratic control. As long as we have democratic control and not a dictator, then I tend to trust what's going to happen. So we have to make sure that governments don't try to interfere with the normal progression of the internet, because the internet is the vehicle for democracy. The internet promotes ideas. It promotes the dissemination of discussion, of argument, which is good. Dictators don't like that. So the greatest enemy of the internet is dictators who want to control the flow of information. That's why we have to make sure that these technologies are under democratic control. That means education first. The public has to be educated that these technologies are being investigated today so that they can make reasonable, wise decisions about the future of these. Let me give you an example. Genetic engineering. There are two kinds of genetic engineering. One genetic engineering is for just one generation, just for you. Your bad genes are fixed forever. Those genes are gone forever. The other possibility is that they're fixed for you, but your children could have that same gene. So there's a debate within scientists whether you should genetically alter people for one generation or forever. And that's a moral question, because if you eliminate a gene forever, that gene could have good purposes. For example, take a look at sickle cell anemia. That affects African Americans and people from America. It's a blood disease, sickle cell anemia. We'll be able to cure that very soon. Right now, we're doing clinical trials to cure sickle cell anemia. But if we eliminate sickle cell anemia, the problem is that it has a good aspect to it. It protects you against malaria. So if you eliminate a gene because it's bad, because it causes sickle cell anemia, it has a good side to it as well. It helps to protect you against malaria. So we have to have democratic control over this because of the fact that many genes have two aspects, a good aspect and a bad aspect.
Next question, please. Who would like to ask? Yeah,
Hi,
Tatiana.
my name is Tatiana from Latin Clima. I would like to know what do you think about how communication will be in the future?
About what?
Communication, in general, communications between people, like, yeah.
Well, I think that the communication of the future will be more and more artificially intelligent, meaning that almost everything around you will be intelligent. For example, where is electricity today? Electricity is under your floor, it's in the wall, it's in the ceiling. Electricity is in your body. It's in your cell phone. Electricity is everywhere and nowhere. You don't even think about it. That's where artificial intelligence will be in the future. It'll be everywhere and nowhere, hidden in the environment. Carrying out your wishes, doing what you want. And a lot of that will be done silently. For example, like I said, your contact lens will scan the room and tell you the biography of everyone in the room silently, so you will always know who you're talking to, what you're looking at, and beyond that, you'll send thoughts mentally to the internet portal. You'll control things mentally. Now that sounds like science fiction, but we do that already. People who are paralyzed in hospitals, we connect their brains to the internet. This has already been done. Who pays for it? The United States Pentagon. Why? Because so many GIs were injured in Afghanistan or Iraq. Their spinal cords were injured. So the military wants to bypass the spinal cord by hooking the brain to a computer. So this is we already do this. So I think that in the future, the internet will be everywhere and nowhere.
Are there any more questions? Yes, please, Javi.
You talked about the future in a positive way. We heard about the space. We heard about this, the space, and on all that way the human being have to take. But what we have to do first, we have to act first to other problems like social problems or something. To focus in future if we don't solve before the social problems in the world?
Well, we have to do both, because in the creation of technologies, we sometimes help to solve social problems. For example, let me ask you a simple question. Where does wealth come from? All the wealth of society you see around you, there's tremendous wealth. Where does it come from? You talk to a politician, and they say, that's easy, taxes. Taxes create wealth. No, taxes rearrange wealth. It doesn't create wealth. You talk to an economist, and you ask them, where does wealth come from? And the economist says, that's easy, you print money. You simply print the money, that's where wealth comes from. No, because that causes inflation. Money becomes worthless. I say, wealth comes from science and technology, starting with the steam engine, which gave us the Industrial Revolution, electricity and magnetism, which gave us the electric age, the transistor, which gave us the computer age, and now the future, artificial intelligence. That is wealth creation. So it's not that we have to spend money on social problems and no money on technology. Nope. It's the other way around. You spend money on technology and you solve social problems, because technology creates wealth. Wealth solves many social problems. Not all, of course, but wealth solves many social problems. So instead of less science, we need more science.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Professor. Yeah, we have another question. Maybe, Javi, if you can pass the mic on to Sean.
Thanks. My name is Sean Carroll. I'm from Euractiv. Just given the scale of the climate crisis that we're facing, there seems to be a lot of new technology which offers a huge amount of promise. But given the kind of urgency that we need to act, do you think technology will basically be ready in time to avert the climate crisis, or do we need to take steps now to basically tell people that you shouldn't, take long-haul flights, etc.?
It's going to be a race against time. It's going to be very close. Some people think the solar revolution is going to solve the problem. There's a problem with that. Solar power is not economically competitive with fossil fuels in all markets. It's neck and neck in some markets, but it's only a small fraction, a tiny fraction of the energy consumption of the planet Earth. What's the problem? Why don't we have solar? We've been talking about solar for years, decades. What's the problem with solar? They never tell you this. I'm a physicist, I know the answer. The reason why we don't have solar is because of the battery. We forget that. When the sun doesn't shine, the winds don't blow, solar is useless, totally useless. But people never tell you that. They just say solar is a solution. Nope. The battery is the bottleneck. But the battery requires more experimentation, the chemical reaction in a battery. So that's one reason why we don't have the solar age. Now the fusion age is coming, but it's going to be a mix not one technology, but several technologies. And as I said, in France, they're going to turn on the fusion reactor in about 2 or 3 years. And we'll see whether or not that'll work. By mid-century, we hope to commercialize fusion power.
So we will be able to power an entire house for a year with the energy in a glass of water. That is what we say. If there are no more questions, I'm looking at the room. Yes, please, it will be the last questions.
Okay. And what if fusion fails?
What?
What if fusion energy fails? The ITER doesn't work, for example, for some reason.
What was that?
What do we do if it fails, if this technology fails?
Well, sometimes technology fails. I mean, what can I say? But it's neck and neck. It's neck and neck with global warming. So if we fail, then we go the way of the dinosaurs.
You mean like not going forward on the Kardashev scale, for example?
Well, if we cannot stop global warming, there's going to be massive disruption of societies on the planet Earth, leading to mass migrations and possibly major wars. The United States Pentagon did a secret study of what would happen if global warming went out of control. And they said that the hotspot is between India and Pakistan, that mass migration of Pakistan into India would overwhelm India, and India would respond with nuclear weapons. Nuclear weapons could be the ultimate outcome of global warming gone out of control. So they looked at it, and they said that that's one possible alternative. Hotspots with mass migration over the borders, leading to nations using nuclear weapons to preserve their national borders. That's a worst-case scenario.
If we don't tackle the
Thank you.
emergency.
Right.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Professor Kaku. Thank you for making the trip all the way to Madrid. I hope that you enjoy the welcome in this city. Thank you, everyone, for being here with us today, and I wish you a very good evening here in Madrid. Thank you, Professor.
Right. My pleasure.